The different users of One For All are pretty mysterious in My Hero Academia. We don't really have a lot of information on each of the individual users besides their name at this point because we have seen all of their appearances in the manga, but one thing we definitely haven't seen is all of their fights against All For One. Or have we? Well, actually, by now in the story, we've seen a flashback of every single One For All user fighting against All For One, just in different fragments. All throughout this last half of the story, we've been seeing flashbacks to All Might versus All For One, and that's kind of the one that everyone really wants to see the most. We saw Nana Shimura's in the little Nana Shimura OVA. We saw her ending against All For One. Then the three users behind her, 6, 5, and 1, and that's going to be En, Banjo, and Hikage Shinomori. And those three, we saw all of their scenes where they're passing One For All on in a single page, right? When Deku and Bakugo and All Might were all discussing the previous users of One For All. And they're all pretty bloody in those scenes, I think, except for the fourth user, so you could tell that they definitely gave up those quirks in a time of harsh combat, right? A lot of them are just completely bloody, under rubble, and the only person really strong enough to put a One For All user in that situation is definitely All For One. In this most recent chapter of My Hero Academia, you can watch the spoiler video that I uploaded last night by clicking in the top right above. We saw a flashback of the third user's fight against All For One, as All For One within Shigaraki looks at Deku and recognizes the energy around his body, and he's like, okay, I remember fighting that guy. And we see a panel of the third user covered in blood, kind of smiling in what is also probably his final moments. And then a few chapters ago, when Bakugo awakened his quirk and started attacking Shigaraki, Shigaraki had a flashback to the second user standing in front of him, and if he was standing right in front of All For One, right, and he was a One For All user, we can only assume that that was during their fight as well. So considering we've also seen the first user in his own flashback back when Deku first started having dreams, we've really seen a flashback to every individual fight between the One For All users and All For One. But is that really enough? I mean, I know for me it's not, right? For you, I'm sure it's not either. So how can we get more of those flashbacks in a way that makes sense and doesn't just feel like Horikoshi packing a bunch of flashbacks into the same chapter? Well, at the end of My Hero Academia chapter 367, we do see all the individual vestiges of One For All standing behind Deku, or I guess floating in a mist behind Deku, as he readies his assault on Shigaraki. And now I suppose the question is, we know that All For One to a certain extent can sense his brother's presence. He knows that his brother was active around the time of the joint training arc because we do see that he notices it even from the prison. So does that also extend to the All For One within Shigaraki? Because if so, is it likely that Shigaraki can see the vestiges behind Deku? Because if so, that would actually offer Deku a pretty prime opportunity at getting in All For One's head a little bit, which we know that Deku's not that great at. He's not the best trash talker ever. But I think if All For One can see or at least sense the presence of the other vestiges there, even just their presence or anything that they have to say, if he can hear them too, would really throw him off, because we can tell that All For One gets very aggravated and agitated and a little thrown off when things don't go his way and there's someone that can actually oppose him. And we've been seeing these really triggering flashbacks for All For One of his fights against these various One For All users, so actually seeing them there behind Deku and having to hear from them right would definitely be a major advantage for Deku to have, because even at the very end of this chapter, we do see Deku trying to get into All For One's head a little bit, right, by asking him, hey, All For One, is Shigaraki still there? You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm not even worried about anything that you have going on, All For One. I'm not worried about the fact that you just littered my friends and these pro heroes all over the ground and destroyed them, and my friend might be dead over there. I'm gonna rage out and I'm gonna take you down, but I want you to understand that the reason that I'm doing this is because I want to know if Shigaraki's still in there so I can get him out of there and out of your control. Very much mimicking Deku in the first chapter of My Hero Academia when he goes to save Bakugo, when Bakugo is under the control of the slime villain. A villain who, by the way, is active and is, you know, kind of in the battlefield. I believe he's over in the Kirimina area, but I might be wrong. I feel like we saw him very recently, so correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Where is the slime villain right now? Which battlefield is he on? But instead of just seeing a bunch of flashbacks back to back while Deku is fighting All For One, and All For One starts recognizing those One For All users, I think what's way more likely is when Deku and Shigaraki go into the Quirk kind of tug of war that they do when All For One or Shigaraki tries sealing stealing One For All, I think much like last time how when All For One tried stealing Deku's One For All and we saw all the One For All vestiges, or really just Nana and the First appearing behind Deku in the vestige world, I think this time we're going to see Deku with his full body and his hero costume ready to save Shigaraki, and we're also going to see the other vestiges behind him ready to fight against the League of Quirks that All For One has within his vestige world. Very similar to how Star and Stripes went into Shigaraki and started destroying all the different quirks that he has and even put All For One in danger. I do think that it takes a quirk to destroy another quirk, and I believe that we're going to see all the individual users of One For All come back pretty much to fight All For One within his head, within the vestige space, and also try to start a revolution from all the other quirk users who are there that we know can fight back against All For One, but it's just very difficult for them to do that because he's extremely powerful in the vestige space. And ultimately, that's what I think is going to have to happen with all the One For All users getting flashbacks and fighting against All For One in the vestige space. So we can not only see more realized flashbacks of all their individual fights, but Deku can also see it as well, because flashbacks in the vestige world are kind of like material, right? Like the vestige world will create an actual scene of the flashback, and I feel like that would actually be really informational for Deku, because better than anyone, he can piece together a strategy to then learn from where everyone fell short and take everything that they've done and put it together to defeat All For One. And I do think Deku is going to inspire all those different quirks that are within All For One to rampage against All For One just from seeing how Deku is moving. Not because he has New Order and he's going to command that to happen, but speaking on New Order, I don't think that Star and Stripe is completely gone from within the vestige world with All For One and Shigaraki, right? I do think the smart thing to do would be for a little fragment of her energy to kind of hide away and prepare itself for the final battle, for whoever is going to end up going in there again with One For All. And who knows? I mean, wouldn't it be nutty if like Star and Stripe found her way into One For All or something? Like, we don't really know what could happen when we start getting in this really weird kind of quirk, science-y, quirk, All For One, One For All interacting section. So I think it'll be very interesting, and I do think, again, that that is where we're going to see full flashbacks for all the different One For All users. At least if I was writing My Hero Academia, that's where I would put it. So hopefully Horikoshi does want to show us those flashbacks, and these little fragments that we've gotten so far aren't everything that we get. I know everyone really wants to see the full Prime All Might versus full Prime All For One fight, and I just think it would really hurt if we don't end up getting that. So fingers crossed, hope we do. And this is Pineapple. I'll see you later. Again, if you want to see the full spoiler video seeing everything that happened in chapter 367, you can check the description or the comment section, and it should be there below. And also, for any fans of Chainsaw Man that are watching this video, I did recently upload a video covering all devils in Chainsaw Man, so please click the card in the top right to check that out also. And yeah, please support the Chainsaw Man content. There's going to be a lot of it coming. I've already been getting some new viewers coming to the channel who are only Chainsaw Man fans, and I've already seen some My Hero fans going, we only want My Hero content, but this channel's always been one where I upload multiple series, even back to the Kimetsu no Yaiba days. So hopefully you guys can get along. I love you guys. See you later. It's Pineapple, and more content coming tomorrow. Keeping the daily streak going. Peace.